Miranda Johnson stood at the window of her childhood bedroom, gazing out at the neatly trimmed hedges and the white picket fence that framed the Johnson family home. From the outside, everything looked flawless, like a postcard frozen in time. But inside, the air was thick with unspoken tensions and invisible cracks that had been growing for years. Growing up in suburban Chicago, Miranda had always known her place. She was the eldest daughter, the responsible one, the rock her parents expected her to be. Her younger brother Ethan was their golden boy, the pampered child who stumbled repeatedly but was never truly held accountable. While Miranda worked part-time jobs throughout high school, saved every penny, and earned a scholarship to a prestigious university, Ethan floundered through multiple colleges, dropping out each time, only to be rescued by their parents' seemingly endless patience and financial support. Miranda's mother, Nancy, often justified this blatant favoritism with a sigh. "Ethan is sensitive. He needs more encouragement. You're naturally strong. Miranda, you don't need us as much." That phrase, naturally strong, became both a compliment and a curse. It meant Miranda had to carry the weight of expectations alone to be perfect, not for herself, but to compensate for Ethan's shortcomings. Despite the imbalance, Miranda had persevered. She built a life that was independent and promising, even if it was built on a foundation of neglect disguised as tough love. But the facade was beginning to crack. That afternoon, Ethan burst into the room with his usual blend of bravado and desperation. Dressed in designer clothes that clearly didn't match his bank account, he pitched his latest once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity, a cryptocurrency called Secure Coin, promising astronomical returns. He needed $30,000 to get started, and he wanted Miranda's help. Miranda listened carefully, the warning bells ringing louder with every word. She did her research, uncovering red flags that screamed scam. When she refused to give Ethan the money, the cracks in the family's perfect facade shattered completely. Her parents, instead of supporting her caution, turned against her. Accusations flew. Miranda was selfish, jealous, and unsupportive of her brother. The very family that should have stood by her became the source of her greatest pain. What happened next would change everything. Miranda clenched her jaw as her mother's words cut through the room like a knife. "You don't understand, Miranda," Nancy said, her voice trembling with frustration. "Ethan needs us. You've always been so distant. It's like you're trying to punish him." Her father, Gerald, nodded in agreement, folding his arms tightly. "You have a responsibility as a sister to support your family. This business of refusing him money, it's tearing us apart." The family room, usually filled with laughter, and the hum of daily life felt suffocating. Miranda's heart pounded as she stared at her parents' people, who should have been her strongest allies, now judging her with cold eyes. "I'm not trying to punish anyone," Miranda said steadily. "I'm trying to protect you all from him and from scams like this. I love Ethan, but giving him money to chase illusions won't help him grow up." Her words fell on deaf ears. Ethan scoffed, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe if you weren't so busy playing the perfect daughter, you'd understand what it's like to take a risk." That risk, Miranda knew, wasn't bravery. It was recklessness dressed up in empty promises. But her parents saw only the version of Ethan they wanted to believe, in the vulnerable boy who needed saving, not the man who needed consequences. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between Miranda and her family widened. Phone calls went unanswered. Invitations to family dinners stopped coming. The house she'd grown up in felt like a cage, one where love was conditional and trust was fragile. Yet through it all, Miranda remained steadfast. She poured her energy into her work, her son Thomas, and her own healing. But the wound inflicted by her family's betrayal festered beneath the surface, threatening to consume everything she had fought for. One morning, as she prepared Thomas for school, the unthinkable happened. Her phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. "Your son is missing. Call us immediately." The world seemed to collapse around Miranda as she stared at the flashing number on her phone. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared it might burst through her chest. "Your son is missing," the message had said. The school hadn't called, but the local police department. Within minutes, she was racing through Chicago's busy streets, clutching Thomas's favorite toy in one hand and gripping the steering wheel with the other. Her mind was a whirlwind of panic and disbelief. How could this be happening? How could the one safe place, the school, fail to protect her son? When she arrived at the police station, the officers were tight-lipped and cautious. "We're doing everything we can," one assured her. But the words felt hollow against the pounding dread in her chest. The news spread fast. Neighbors, friends, even strangers shared the alerts and rallied to help in the search. Miranda's phone never stopped ringing, calls from reporters, concerned acquaintances, and well-meaning strangers. But none of that mattered. Only Thomas. Amid the chaos, her parents watched from a distance, their silence heavier than words. Gerald avoided eye contact. Nancy's face was a mask of worry and guilt. But when Miranda reached out to them, hoping for support, she was met with coldness instead. "You should have been more careful," her father said sharply. "This is what happens when you try to do everything alone." Her mother's eyes welled with tears. "Maybe if you'd listened to us, things would be different." Miranda's world fractured further. The people she needed most were the ones turning their backs. Desperate and exhausted, she found an unexpected ally in Aunt Ruth, a distant relative who had always been a quiet observer of the family's hidden struggles. Ruth offered her a place to stay, and more importantly, a listening ear. Days later, the nightmare ended. When Thomas was found safe at a nearby church, confused but unharmed. The note left with him chilled Miranda to the bone, signed by her own parents demanding she learn her lesson. The betrayal cut deeper than the fear. Miranda realized the family she had long tried to protect was now the very source of her pain. The moment Thomas was returned to her arms, relief flooded Miranda's body, mingled with an icy resolve. The small boy clung to her tightly, eyes wide with confusion and fear. His innocence shattered in a way words could never fully capture. But the note left behind was a chilling reminder the betrayal came from the very people sworn to love and protect him, her own parents. "This isn't just a family dispute anymore," Miranda whispered to herself. "This is a matter of safety." Determined to shield Thomas from further harm, Miranda filed for emergency custody, seeking legal protection against her parents' erratic and dangerous behavior. The courtroom became the new battlefield, harsh, public, and unforgiving. Gerald and Nancy, once pillars of the community, now faced accusations that stunned their friends and neighbors. The judge, weary from years of family disputes, looked intently at Miranda. "Ms. Johnson," the judge said solemnly, "your priority is the child's best interest. Evidence of neglect and endangerment will be thoroughly examined." Miranda's lawyer presented compelling proof, the note witness testimonies, and evidence of financial irresponsibility and emotional neglect. Meanwhile, Ethan's involvement in dubious financial schemes came to light, casting further shadows on the family's credibility. Through endless hearings and mediation attempts, Miranda remained steadfast, refusing to allow the fractures of her family to dictate her son's future. Outside the courtroom, the media buzzed with speculation, turning a private nightmare into a public spectacle. Miranda shielded Thomas from the glare, but the weight of scrutiny threatened to crush them both. Yet in the darkest moments, flickers of hope emerged. Community support grew, old friends rallied, and Aunt Ruth became an unwavering source of comfort. Miranda realized that family was no longer defined by blood alone. It was forged in trust, protection, and unconditional love. The rift within the Johnson family had widened, but Miranda's determination to build a new foundation for Thomas never wavered. The courtroom was tense, thick with unspoken emotions, as the family's darkest secrets unraveled in front of a judge, lawyers, and a sea of spectators. Miranda sat beside her lawyer Thomas, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware of the storm swirling around them. Gerald's face, once confident and commanding, now showed cracks of desperation as evidence was presented. Financial documents revealing the mortgaging of the family home to fund Ethan's failing ventures, testimonies from creditors, and revelations of Ethan's involvement in a sprawling cryptocurrency scam that had left dozens bankrupt. Nancy's tearful confessions exposed years of denial and misplaced loyalty, painting a portrait of a mother torn between protecting her children and ignoring the damage wrought by their choices. The courtroom became a battleground, not only for custody, but for truth, forgiveness, and justice. In a poignant moment, Aunt Ruth stepped forward, recounting years of whispered concerns and quiet interventions she had attempted to make. Her testimony was a beacon of hope amidst the chaos, shining light on the family's dysfunction and Miranda's resilience. Ethan's lawyer portrayed him as a troubled soul, battling addiction, urging the court for leniency and rehabilitation rather than condemnation. Miranda's heart ached, torn between the brother she loved and the brother who had betrayed their family's trust. Outside the courtroom, media frenzy intensified, painting the Johnson family as a tragic, cautionary tale. Miranda struggled with the intrusion, but knew that transparency was vital for healing. Back-home therapy sessions for Thomas began helping the young boy process the trauma he had endured. Miranda found solace in small victories, Thomas's laughter returning, his nightmares easing. As the legal battle continued, Miranda drew strength from her chosen family friends, allies, and professionals who stood by her unwaveringly. The revelations had shattered the Johnson family's facade, but within the rubble lay the possibility of rebuilding not as a perfect family, but as a real one. The months that followed were marked by slow, sometimes painful, but undeniable progress. The storm of legal battles and family betrayals gradually gave way to moments of peace, laughter, and hope. Miranda and Thomas moved into a modest apartment in a quieter neighborhood, far from the echoes of the past. The walls were bare at first, but day by day they filled with new memories. Paintings Thomas created, photographs of smiles unburdened by fear, and shelves lined with books that told stories of resilience and courage. Therapy sessions became a cornerstone of their healing. Thomas's nightmares began to fade, replaced by dreams filled with light and security. Miranda found strength in watching her son regain his innocence, his laughter echoing through their new home like a song of survival. Professionally, Miranda poured herself into her graphic design work, channeling her pain and hope into creations that resonated with many. Her work gained recognition not only for its artistry, but for the story it told, one of strength rising from brokenness. At the same time, the Johnson family saga continued to unfold. Ethan entered rehabilitation, confronting his addictions and the consequences of his actions. Though estranged, Miranda held on to a fragile hope for his recovery, understanding that healing often came in fractured pieces. Miranda's relationship with her parents remained strained. Boundaries were firm, conversations cautious. Yet in quiet moments, there were glimpses of remorse and the tentative desire for reconciliation. Support came from unexpected places, a community rallying around a mother fighting for her child, friends who became family, and a growing network of people inspired by Miranda's resilience. Though the scars of betrayal would never fully fade, Miranda knew that every new day was a chance to rebuild, to redefine family, and to reclaim joy. The dawn of a new chapter was both exhilarating and daunting for Miranda. As she juggled the demands of single motherhood and growing her graphic design business, the shadows of her past occasionally crept in, challenging her resolve. Business meetings were often interrupted by phone calls from school or therapists, reminders of Thomas's ongoing healing. Yet each call was a testament to the progress they had made, a bridge between trauma and recovery. Miranda's creativity flourished. She launched a campaign focused on family resilience, weaving personal stories of struggle and strength into compelling visuals that captured the hearts of many. The project attracted attention from local media and advocacy groups, positioning her as not just an artist, but a voice for change. However, success brought its own challenges. The public exposure intensified scrutiny from her estranged family, who sometimes attempted to manipulate media narratives. Miranda remained steadfast, refusing to let their interference derail her progress. Meanwhile, Ethan's rehabilitation journey was fraught with setbacks and breakthroughs. Miranda struggled with conflicting emotions, hope for his recovery, tempered by memories of betrayal. Amidst the chaos, a new figure entered Miranda's life, a counselor named Daniel, whose compassionate nature and understanding of trauma provided a safe space for Miranda to explore her own vulnerabilities. Their connection blossomed slowly, grounded in mutual respect and shared resilience. Through trials and triumphs, Miranda learned that rising from the ashes required more than strength. It demanded forgiveness, trust, and the courage to embrace new beginnings. Daniel appeared in Miranda's life like a quiet anchor in a stormy sea. Their sessions began as therapy appointments, a safe place for Miranda to untangle the knots of her past and present. Over time, those conversations spilled beyond the office walls into coffees shared after sessions, laughter exchanged over dinner, and moments of genuine connection. Daniel understood trauma not as a barrier, but as a bridge, something that shaped Miranda but did not define her. His patience and empathy allowed her to lower her guard, revealing vulnerabilities she had long buried beneath layers of resilience. At work, Miranda's design business flourished. The campaign for family resilience gained national attention, opening doors to partnerships with nonprofits and speaking engagements that amplified her message. Every success was a step away from the shadows of her past. Yet balancing this new life with the responsibilities of motherhood remained a delicate act. Thomas thrived under Miranda's care and therapy, but occasional setbacks reminded her that healing was not linear. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Daniel surprised her with a small hand-carved wooden box, a symbol of trust and new beginnings. Inside was a delicate necklace, a simple circle representing unity and strength. "Something to remind you," he said softly, "that you're not alone." Miranda accepted the gift with tears in her eyes, feeling the weight and warmth of connection she hadn't thought possible. As seasons changed, so did Miranda's confidence, not just in her work or relationships, but in her ability to face the future with hope and courage. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, Miranda felt grounded, ready to build foundations that could endure. Success. Miranda soon discovered was not a straight path, but a winding road marked with unexpected obstacles. Just as her graphic design campaign was gaining momentum, a former client launched a lawsuit claiming intellectual property infringement. The legal battle drained her resources and energy, forcing her to lean heavily on her support network. At home, Thomas faced a setback, a relapse into nightmares that disrupted his sleep and tested Miranda's patience and resolve. Therapy sessions increased, and Miranda spent sleepless nights comforting her son, determined to provide a safe harbor amid his fears. Meanwhile, Ethan's progress in rehabilitation was inconsistent. Phone calls from him oscillated between apologies and relapses, leaving Miranda torn between hope and caution. She set firm boundaries, prioritizing her and Thomas's well-being above all. Amidst these trials, Daniel's steady presence was a beacon. He encouraged Miranda to practice self-care, reminding her that healing was a journey for both parent and child. At a keynote event, Miranda shared her story, her struggles and victories, with an audience moved by her honesty and strength. The standing ovation was a testament to the power of vulnerability and resilience. Through setbacks and breakthroughs, Miranda learned that triumph wasn't about perfection, but persistence. Each challenge overcame was a thread woven into the fabric of her new life. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains as Thomas woke with a smile, a small but significant victory for both mother and son. His progress in therapy was evident not only in calmer nights, but in the way he faced each day with growing confidence. Miranda watched him play in the backyard, his laughter ringing clear and unburdened. The years of trauma had left scars, but they no longer defined him. At the same time, tentative steps toward reconciliation began to take shape. Gerald and Nancy, having faced the consequences of their actions, reached out with sincere apologies and a willingness to attend family counseling. Miranda was cautious but open. Forgiveness, she understood, was a process, not an event. Family sessions were fraught with emotion, anger, regret, and longing mingled as each member confronted their part in the fracture. But amidst the pain, there was hope, a chance to rebuild trust and connection. Ethan, now several months sober, expressed remorse and a desire to make amends. Though wary, Miranda allowed space for healing. Together, they forged a new kind of family, imperfect but striving for understanding. As Thomas hugged his grandparents goodbye after a weekend visit, Miranda felt a quiet peace settle over her. The journey was ongoing, but the path forward was illuminated by love and resilience. Life, as Miranda soon discovered, never truly settles. Just as the fragile threads of reconciliation began to weave a tentative new tapestry for the family, unexpected challenges surfaced, testing their resolve and unity. At work, a major tech client requested a large-scale redesign with a tight deadline. The project demanded long hours and pushed Miranda's team to the limits. Balancing this with her responsibilities at home required careful planning and unwavering determination. Meanwhile, Thomas, now more confident, but still navigating his trauma-faced social challenges at school. Bullying and exclusion reminded Miranda of the fragility of childhood, compelling her to advocate fiercely for her son's well-being. Ethan, on the path of recovery, encountered temptations that threatened to derail his progress. His vulnerability reminded Miranda that healing was ongoing, requiring patience and support. Throughout these trials, Daniel's presence remained a steady source of comfort. Their relationship deepened, built on trust, shared dreams, and the courage to face the unknown together. Miranda realized that strength was not the absence of struggle, but the resilience to endure and grow. The morning sun filtered through the office windows as Miranda sat reviewing the proposal for a nationwide public awareness campaign on child safety and family resilience. The opportunity was monumental, an initiative backed by a coalition of nonprofits, government agencies, and corporate partners, promising to expand her message far beyond her local community. The stakes were high. Success could mean millions of families reached, but failure could damage her reputation and the fragile trust she had rebuilt. As she prepared for the pitch meeting, her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel offering words of encouragement and reminding her to breathe. The meeting was intense. Questions probed the depth of her experience, the sustainability of the project, and her ability to manage the complex coalition. Miranda answered with clarity, passion, and authenticity. By the end, the room was filled with nods of approval and the promise of funding. That evening, as she celebrated with Daniel and close friends, Miranda felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. The path ahead was challenging, but she was ready. With the nationwide campaign underway, Miranda's days became a whirlwind of coordination, public speaking, and strategy. The work was demanding but fulfilling, each success fueling her determination to make a difference. Thomas adjusted well to the new routine, thriving with increased support and stability. His smiles became more frequent, his confidence growing with every small victory. However, the increased visibility brought scrutiny. Some critics questioned Miranda's motivations, while others dug into her family's troubled past. The media glare was unrelenting, testing her resilience. Through it all, Daniel remained a pillar of strength. Their relationship deepened, balancing passion with mutual respect and shared goals. Miranda learned to delegate, to trust her team, and to prioritize her well-being alongside her mission. Change was constant, but so was her commitment to her son, her work, and the future she was building. As the campaign gained momentum, Miranda found herself at a crossroads, pulled between the demands of her career and the needs of her family. The long hours and frequent travel began to weigh heavily, straining her relationship with Daniel and leaving less time for Thomas. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Miranda returned home to find Thomas asleep on the couch, clutching a worn stuffed animal. The sight struck her deeply, a reminder of the sacrifices her son was making alongside her. Daniel greeted her gently, sensing her exhaustion. "You can't do everything alone," he said softly. "We're a team. Let me help." Miranda realized that embracing support was not a sign of weakness, but a vital step in sustaining her mission and her family. At the same time, her parents reached out again, this time with tentative invitations to family events. The wounds were far from healed, but bridges were being rebuilt. In a heartfelt conversation, Miranda shared her fears and hopes with Daniel, reaffirming their commitment to face challenges together. With renewed clarity, she balanced her roles as a mother leader and partner, understanding that true strength lay in vulnerability and connection. The fragile peace Miranda had begun to build with her parents was tested when Gerald suffered a mild heart attack. The crisis forced Miranda to confront years of resentment and hurt, as well as her lingering hope for reconciliation. At the hospital bedside, old wounds resurfaced alongside moments of tenderness. Nancy's quiet tears and Gerald's apologetic glances revealed the depth of their remorse and desire to mend broken ties. Miranda struggled to balance compassion with caution, unsure if forgiveness was truly possible. Daniel stood by her side, offering unwavering support. Meanwhile, Ethan's recovery journey took a positive turn as he completed a rehabilitation program and sought steady employment. Though trust remained tentative, his efforts signaled a genuine desire to change. Back at work, Miranda faced new challenges. Budget cuts threatened the campaign's reach, and political pressures complicated partnerships. Yet her determination only strengthened. Through setbacks and breakthroughs, Miranda learned that healing, both personal and professional, was a continuous process requiring patience, resilience, and trust. The campaign faced its greatest test when funding uncertainties threatened to halt progress. Miranda rallied her team, advocating fiercely with partners and stakeholders, refusing to let bureaucracy stall their mission. Her passion and clear vision inspired renewed commitment from donors and volunteers alike. Community events flourished, bringing stories of resilience and hope to thousands. At home, Miranda hosted a family gathering, inviting her parents, Ethan, Daniel, and close friends. The evening was a mixture of laughter, tears, and tentative connections, a celebration of progress amid imperfection. Thomas played freely with his cousins, his laughter a testament to healing and new beginnings. Miranda reflected on the journey, the battles fought, the bridges built, and the strength found in unity. Though the future remained uncertain, she knew they would face it together.